Welcome back to the Jungle Fever Podcast, Episode 5. I'm Ethan Sargent. Ayden Crowley is here with me, as always, and we are back to talk a little bit more about the Bengals football. Now we are really in the weeds of the offseason. We have moved past the draft, and there are going to be a couple months here where there isn't much happening, but it was a busy week for the Bengals for a number of reasons. Of course, rookie minicamp was this past week. We got to see some of the Bengals draft picks in stripes for the first time, participating in some light on-field training. A couple, however, didn't participate. We're going to talk about that. It is also schedule release week. We just actually, about an hour or two ago, we just had the opening game of the NFL season announced. Philadelphia Eagles, the Super Bowl champions, will be hosting the Dallas Cowboys, the big money American team Dallas Cowboys. That'll be a money-making game, and that will be the opener for the 2025 NFL season. Then over the course of the next couple of days, we will get a full schedule. I mean, today is the 12th. I believe on the 14th, which is Wednesday, is when we're going to get the full schedule release. So we're going to talk about the Bengals schedule, what some quirks might be, where we're looking at some potential primetime games. We're going to get to that in just a second. But first, let's get to what we saw earlier this week, and it was a very interesting thing. The Bengals had their rookie mini camp on May 9th. They're actually one of the only teams that does a one-day rookie mini camp. So they had 4 of their 6 draft picks participating, but per sources, Shemar Stewart, their first-round pick off the edge, and their second-round pick linebacker Demetrious Knight Jr. did not participate in any drills on the sideline. This is what Shemar Stewart said after the mini camp practice when the after practice kind of huddle happened in the locker room. This is a direct quote. I just decided not to sign those papers. I hate being on the sideline looking at everyone else do work. Then he said, quote, I would hope so. When asked about signing the papers on Monday, I would love to be a part of the team. He's doing everything else, just not the on the field stuff. Zach Taylor said about the situation, quote, we'll see about them being on the field. I'm not going to make any predictions on where that ends up, but they've had a great attitude, and I'm excited about both guys. So I think the first thing to explain about the situation is number one, the Bengals have signed their other 4 draft picks officially. Dylan Fairchild, the rest of their 4th-round squad, they all participated in those drills. By the way, we got to see Joe Burrow throw the ball a little bit this week. Jamar Chase catch the
Don't
football a
have the
little
Met
bit this
Gala
week.
anymore.
Which, we're not worried about those guys' contracts, at least for the time being, which is nice to see. It's also good to see Jamar Chase and T. Higgins in the building so early in the offseason. Now that they've got their money, good to see them 100% being in the building and committed early in the offseason. But let's get back to Shemar Stewart and Demetrious Knight. Both of these guys didn't participate. Ayden, there are a couple reasons why. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, first things first, I would just say that this is relatively normal. You could see this happening a lot. I believe there's 6 other teams that still haven't signed their first round rookie that they drafted, and he hasn't participated in rookie minicamp. I'm not freaking out or anything. I think it also just kind of goes to show kind of the transitional period now that we have between college sports and professional sports and how it's starting to get blurred with NIL. I think a lot of players are getting smarter about their deals and they know what they want in those deals. And so they can have a little bit more leverage to push back against teams and kind of fight for what they want. And so at the end of the day, like you have to respect that out of players. And I have no worries about them getting this done. And like you said, the Bengals notoriously take rookie minicamp extremely, extremely light. Every team takes it light, but I
You're
think
not going
Bengals
to see guys hitting each other.
Bengals take it to the next level. They're just kind of out there. I know the biggest story of the day actually on the field is about the long snapper competition. So if that
Yeah.
gives you an idea of how much really is invested into these rookie mini camps, but it's just something that's going to get done. Unfortunately, it just seems to kind of always happen with the Bengals front office is stuff like this, and it's always these conversations around these rookies, and they like for whatever reason, there's just certain things that the Bengals don't want to budge on, and so they gotta figure it out. And so one of the things is from ML Football. They had an exclusive report that they're unlike the other 31 teams in the NFL. The Bengals reportedly do not fully protect players when it comes to rookie injury insurance that they have on the roster. And so if I'm Demetrious Knight, if I'm Shemar Stewart, I would like to be fully guaranteed in that first season. And you can understand from the Bengals perspective why they maybe wouldn't want to do that. But
Well, Ayden, I
when
hate
other
to
teams
interrupt
are,
you. I hate to
Yeah.
interrupt you. We have breaking news on Jungle Fever.
Oh,
This
here
is
we
this is
go.
rare.
This is
This is
what's
rare.
up.
This doesn't happen very often, but we have breaking news. We have a statement from Trey Hendrickson to ESPN today. This is Adam Schefter. This is 3 minutes ago. We're recording this at about 12:30 Eastern
Oh
time.
boy.
This was tweeted at 12:21. So this is very recent. I'm going to read you this direct quote. We'll talk about it. We've got the
Wow.
time.
Fire up.
Quote, no communication has taken place between my camp and the organization post draft. The offers prior to the draft did not reflect the vision we shared and were promised last offseason if I continue to play at a high level. Coaches are aware of these past conversations. Rather than using collaboration to get us to a point to bring me home to the team, they, in all caps, are no longer communicating. I have been eagerly awaiting a resolution of this situation, but that's hard to do when there is no discussion and an evident lack of interest in reaching mutual goals. Uh-oh. um, well, I guess we could do a live reaction.
I was gonna say, yeah, we're getting the full uncut, this is feelings at this point, right? Wow. I'm not entirely shocked. Trey always seems to find a way to come up in these episodes, no matter what's going on.
Hmm.
I feel we weren't going to talk about him today, and here we are. I'm not entirely shocked, and maybe that's just the pessimist in me when it comes to this Bengals front office. Obviously that's coming from Trey's camp, so you kind of take it with a grain of salt. I'm sure the Bengals will come out in a little bit whenever there's some kind of media availability and give their side of things, but I'm not entirely
I think there's
shocked.
media availability later today, if I'm not.
I,
I
I
might be wrong, but I think there is.
yeah, I believe you're right. So they're certainly going to get asked about it. I'll be eagerly awaiting what they have to say
Yeah.
about this situation. But just if we're taking it at face value, if we're taking what Trey says to be truth, which obviously I don't take it fully to be truth, but I think that's a little ridiculous. I think to have just no conversation with one of your four best
It's
players
been
on your
3 weeks since
roster.
the draft.
Yeah, and just to not even have a conversation with training camp right around the corner, and you're ramping up for the season. And there's always been questions about how the Bengals start the season slow.
That's
Now you want to
exactly
have
where I was
this
going to
hanging
go.
over. You want to have this hanging over your head going into the training camp. It's just always something that seems to throw a wrench in how this team likes to ramp up. It's frustrating. It's
Very.
just so
Hmm.
frustrating from a fan perspective to try and defend the team for actions like this. But I guess we'll see what they have to
I
say.
mean, again, and I've kind of been I don't know if I want to call it devil's advocate on this whole thing, because I do not think Trey Hendrickson's agent has dealt with this the right way at all. I think he's bungled this entire, like going even all the way back the past few years. I don't think he's done as good a job as he possibly could have to maximize his client's value. You think about I guess you could in air quotes, the extension that he signed in the 2022 offseason, which basically was one of the most team friendly deals I've ever seen for a player of Trey Hendrickson's caliber. Um, I don't know what the guidance was on signing that. And then basically, I mean, what, a couple off seasons later, all of a sudden he wants a trade. And I think the other thing about this is Trey Hendrickson's made very clear that he loves the players, he loves the team, he loves the fan base, he loves the city, right? He is,
That's
this
the
is a
part
guy
that's
that
so frustrating.
exactly comes in from New Orleans, had been pretty good in New Orleans, comes in, and now he's a superstar. And Bengals fans love Trey Hendrickson. But now, going back to what you said, this is once again a distraction. You think about the last couple of off season. Last year, you had the wide receiver discourse with Jamar Chase, with that Holden, the T. Higgins question marks. Obviously, glad to know that that's now behind us, but it was a big part of why you think. Remember that game against the Patriots where Jamar Chase was holding in, didn't practice
I don't want to
until I
talk about
believe
that
3 days before the game, and then T. Higgins gets hurt on the walkthrough before the game. All of a sudden, your top two, Jamar Chase was a player in that game, but he hadn't been in any of the installs throughout the week. He wasn't a huge part of the game plan like you might have figured him to be. And to be fair to Christian Gonzalez, he's a great cornerback. So the Bengals were down to a brand new Mike Gesicki as basically their wide receiver one in his first game as a Bengal. And you saw how that went with how poorly the offense played in that game. And guess what game cost the Bengals the postseason last year? So you think about that and you think about again, this is not a new thing. How many times in a row now have the Bengals started 0-2? How they cannot afford to do that this year. Look, I've talked about this a couple times. This is a real tangent that I'm sure when we wade into offseason talk, this is a conversation we'll get to. If the Bengals don't make the playoffs this year, Zach Taylor's seat is extremely hot. It may be on it like it might be
It's
on
hot
fire.
as
He might be
is.
gone. I think so. I agree with you. And you think about having another, and they've talked about it already in multiple media availabilities where, look, we need to be ready. Al Golden's mentioned it, right? Dan Pitcher's mentioned it. You have to be ready for this year. You cannot be lax in the offseason. We have to be ready for week one. We'll find out who their week one opponent is in a couple of days. But regardless of if it's Buffalo, if it's a divisional opponent, or if it's the worst team on their schedule, last year it probably was their worst team on the schedule in week one. And look at what happened.
You
So,
saw that schedule released last year, and you saw those first 4 weeks, and you felt pretty confident about going 3-1.
I mean, you obviously
Obviously,
couldn't have predicted the
The
Commanders.
Commanders were
Yeah.
so much better than we could have ever thought. But just off face value, off release, you saw Panthers, you saw Patriots, you saw Commanders, you saw Chiefs. You felt pretty good about starting 3-1, and just didn't go that way.
It
It's just
didn't. So, yeah. Going back briefly, there was one thing I wanted to mention about the Shemar Stewart Demetrious night stuff before we talk about the schedule.
okay.
Um, for Bengals fans who might be a little bit concerned, Marius Mims didn't sign his rookie contract last year until July 18th.
Yeah.
So, and he practiced. He practiced through
Right.
all of this stuff. He participated in everything. He was getting asked about it all the time, and he was just like, "Yeah, we're working through some stuff." And then eventually, he did sign the deal. So it is something where it's just a thing. And I know that you were talking about this right before I cut you off, how ML football posted that. And
You're
look,
good. Yeah.
we'll talk about it here. ML football, maybe not the most reliable source on the
No.
planet. Probably not at all. But the injury protections maybe aren't as good in the Bengals rookie contracts as they are in other rookie deals. Because for most other NFL teams, the reason why a lot of these rookies sign so quickly is because there are tons of protections built in, right? Let's say, and God forbid this ever happens, I really hope it never happens to any of these rookies, but if they have a serious life-changing injury, they will still get paid out all of their rookie contract money. The Bengals don't have that built in, allegedly.
That's the
We
report.
the only people that can know that for sure are the people that do the Bengals contracts and the players themselves. But allegedly, that might be part of the reasoning behind the Shemar Stewart Demetrious night sitting out of practice. They're still in the building, which is good. They're still in, you imagine they're in these meetings and getting to learn the defense, which is really that's the important stuff right now, rather than the on the field stuff isn't that big of a deal, which is why, again, I don't like you said, Ayden, I don't think it's that big
Right.
of a
Yeah. I will just say one more thing on the minicamp stuff. Everything that came out from Taj Brooks, I've loved, by the
yeah,
way. His
yeah.
interviews and everything. Oh my gosh. Like I knew everything that came out of the Texas Tech camp, like they were raving about Taj Brooks as a player and as a person, but all the interviews and stuff, he's just yes sir, no sir. The entire time he's giving great answers. He gave that awesome answer about protecting Joe Burrow, doesn't want to see him get hit ever. It's like he's saying all the right things. He had a hilarious interaction with Trags, I think, where he accidentally called Trags ma'am. I was laughing it off. So he like just instantly, I kind of fell in love with just the person that Taj Brooks is. So I'm rooting for him. I'm rooting for him. Anyway, we can get into
Yeah.
schedules.
No, I 100% agree. It's been good to see him, and I think he's got a big role to play. He's got a big role. And what all of a sudden, I think the Bengals have done a good job with their running back room in this
Yeah.
offseason. We'll talk about that over the course, but I think that they've done a pretty good job at building a running back room that's going to be very competitive next year. So let's talk about next year. Let's talk about the schedule for the Bengals in 2025. We'll have the full schedule on the 14th. A couple of things that I can mention before I go through the opponents. Number one, the Bengals are not going to Spain. That was confirmed. It will be the Washington Commanders who are traveling to take on Miami. There were some rumors that the Bengals were heavily in consideration to play at the Santiago Bernabeu, which is Real Madrid soccer stadium over in Spain, against Miami. That is not happening. It will be the Commanders heading over there. The Bengals actually are not traveling overseas. They've announced, I think, almost all of the international games, and the Bengals are not on that list. So the Bengals will be in the continental United States for the entirety of the 2025
I was
season.
looking I was looking forward to Burrow's Spain fit.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he would have pulled something crazy out. Maybe like a mariachi outfit with the it would have been funny. But looking at the schedule for 2025, here we'll just go through quickly the opponents for home and away games. At Paycor Stadium, the Bengals are going to have 9 home games this year, so they get the extra home game. Obviously, both home and away will have your divisional opponents, Baltimore, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh. Then at Paycor Stadium in 2025, visiting will be the Chicago Bears, the Detroit Lions, the New England Patriots, the New York Jets, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Arizona Cardinals. Then when the Bengals travel on the road this year, some fun road trips, I will say, for those
Yeah.
Bengals fans out there that hit the road. There are some good stadiums on the docket this year. Obviously, the divisional opponents, once again, they travel to Buffalo this year. They'll travel to Green Bay. They'll travel to Miami. They'll travel to Minnesota. And they will travel to Denver. So, Ayden, before we kind of predict where some of these games might end up, what some games might be in prime time, a little bit about this schedule. Let's talk about it a little bit. Number one, the first thing that jumps out to me is there are some really tough road trips for the Bengals this
Yeah.
season.
Yeah, particularly you look at that Buffalo game. I mean, that's one that sticks out. Just every time these two teams play, it always just is awesome to watch. The last time the Bengals were in Buffalo, obviously it was a little one-sided for the Bengals, and that was awesome. That was a great game. So, but you look at that, I mean, Josh Allen coming off of his MVP, and what they have going on.
Fresh new
I
deal, too.
Yeah, fresh new deal. I think they improved as a team as well. I mean, good teams always just improve in the offseason. So, and then a team that really improved in my eyes is Denver. Traveling to Denver, I think they're going to be one of the better teams in the AFC West. Potentially, I still don't buy into the whole Chiefs fall off thing. Everybody wants to do it all offseason. But
Can't do
there's
it.
some people who are picking Denver to win that division. I'm not going to go there yet, but very, very competitive in that division. And then obviously Minnesota with the season that they had last year. I mean, you look at that playoff meltdown, I guess, for lack of a better word, that they had to close the season, and you forget about what they did in the regular season. They just ran through teams.
Well, really, it was the last couple of games, right? Because they had a
Right,
chance to win the division in
right.
Detroit, and the Lions win that game, and then they have to go. Obviously, the circumstances were a bit strange. You go
Yep.
down to Arizona with the LA Wildfires moving that game. And then you go
Right.
down to the LA team that's super motivated and comes in all that. And then LA was, one of the teams that pushed, probably the team that pushed Philadelphia the toughest in the
They
playoffs
did.
when you think about it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
and again, obviously they saw that meltdown with Sam Darnold. And now they move on to their rookie, JJ McCarthy, the former Michigan quarterback, will get the reins in year 2, coming off a meniscus tear last year, didn't play a snap. So it's going to be interesting to see how JJ McCarthy looks. It also could be really interesting to see where they put that game with obviously the LSU receiver stuff, Justin Jefferson on the other side, and Jamar Chase for the Bengals. They've played a couple times now in some big moments. I believe Jamar is 2-0 against Justin Jefferson in the league. I think the Bengals have only played twice, and they've both been at Paycor Stadium. This will be Jamar Chase's first trip over to US Bank Stadium in Minnesota. So obviously, I think the first thing I'll say is that at least one, maybe two of these divisional games are in prime time.
Yeah.
They love putting the Bengals in Baltimore on prime time. They've done it, I think, the
And
last
why
3 years.
wouldn't you?
Yeah,
Why
the
wouldn't
last
you?
3 years, Cincinnati in Baltimore has been in prime time. It was Sunday Night Football in 2022, and it's been Thursday Night Football the last 2 years. Obviously, it was the game that Burrow had his wrist injury in 2023. I was there. That was not fun. And then in 2024, it was another. I mean, both Bengals Ravens games last year were, I mean, obviously they weren't great from our perspective, but if you're watching from a neutral perspective, they were both just phenomenal football games. So I would be very surprised if one, maybe even both, were in prime time between the Bengals and Ravens. When you have Lamar Jackson on one side and Joe Burrow on the other, it's tough to keep those two teams from having fantastic football games. Wouldn't be surprised if a Pittsburgh game ends up in prime time. And then Cleveland, I just don't think Cleveland is going to be good enough this year to warrant a prime time spot. I think Cleveland maybe gets 1 or 2 slots max. I don't think that they're a team that's going to be featured in those big time slots that often. I think the NFL knows, they're looking for matchups, they're looking for ratings. They're 100% trying to find the best matchups to put in those primetime slots. That Buffalo game is, I will say, the caveat with this Buffalo game is it could very well be a 425 on CBS because CBS does their protections,
Yeah.
right? They do their, they're bit by bit. They always protect, like the Bengals and Chiefs don't play in the regular season this year, but they would always protect that game. I would not be surprised if this is another one. Two of the premier quarterbacks in the AFC. They haven't faced off in a couple of years now. I think that CBS might well protect that game and put it in one of their primary 425 prime slots.
Yeah, Bills Chiefs don't play each other this year either in the regular
Yeah.
season. So, and that's one that they always protect as well, is the Mahomes Allen battle.
I think the Bills and Chiefs do play in the regular season this year.
Do they?
They should because they both won the division.
You're right. You're right. You're right. So maybe that's,
So
I don't
yes,
know.
yeah.
It's
So
something.
it's the division, then the place they play the
Right.
one team, and then the one out of conference. So that game for the Bengals this year, I'm pretty sure is it's the out of conference. It's the Bengals play the NFC North this year. It's the
Right.
who is it? It's the Cardinals. It's the
Yeah.
Cardinals game. That's their
Okay.
17th game. That's what they
Right.
added
Right.
as part of the schedule. So when you look at the schedule, a lot of that's the big thing. I think a lot of these away games could be prime time for the Bengals. Like
I
when
really
you
like
obviously
that.
that Buffalo game, they could very well put that Green Bay game in prime time. With just the allure of Lambeau Field, Jordan Love, a solid Packers squad. Minnesota, 100% is in contention there. So is Denver after the game they played last year in prime time. And then when you look at home, the Detroit game is the first game that
That's the one
jumps
I
out
had
to
my
me.
eyes on.
Yeah.
Yep, that's the one I had my eyes on. Just because, I mean, obviously what Detroit did last year, they lose both their coordinators, which
Hmm.
has some people kind of down on them. I don't forget the amount of injuries that they had last season, so I think they're going to be just fine. I think they're going to be good, if not even better than last year. And obviously Dan Campbell has his troops always ready to go every single week, and I think that's a fun one. I think that's one that definitely should get a primetime consideration.
Yeah, I think a sleeper one for these home games is the Bears. Caleb Williams coming to town. I would not be surprised if one of the networks wants to throw Joe Burrow versus Caleb Williams, because that's the big thing you got to think about with a lot of these games is the networks want the big ticket matchups. They want the big ticket quarterback matchup. So that's why Burrow versus Allen, if it's not the 425 on CBS, it's going to be a primetime game because it's two of probably the three or four best quarterbacks in football. And you want to have that with as many eyes on it as possible. So that's what the networks are looking for. And that's why I bring up Caleb Williams. He's primed. The Bears are another team a lot of people are high on. They bring in Ben Johnson. They retool that offensive line. They get some new weapons for Caleb Williams. They're going to try and shore up that defense. And you've got one of the brightest coaching prospects in Ben Johnson coming to Chicago. And a lot of people are very high on the Bears this year with year two of Caleb Williams. So I think that's a distinct possibility as well. Which divisional opponent do you think you want the Bengals to see in week 18?
Ooh, that's a
And
good
would you
question.
want it to be the Browns, right? Because in all seriousness, and again, we're realists here, and we both have plenty of Browns fan friends, and I think a lot of Browns fans understand that this year is going to be, I don't want to say bad is a tough word to use, but maybe transitionatory.
Yeah, it's a
We'll,
growing
we'll be
year.
kind. We'll be kind. I do think that again, you've got Kevin Stefanski, who is a good football coach in my opinion. You've got some good young pieces, especially on the defensive side of the football, but the offense still a major question mark, especially the most important position in sports at the quarterback spot. But I always think that the Bengals, again, the last couple of years especially, they're always a team that consistently gets better as the season goes on, and they play their best football in December and January. It's happened really pretty much since Burrow came to town. They have played their best football late in the season. So you think about last year, they play the Pittsburgh Steelers at Paycor Stadium. They lose what, 44-38.
Yeah.
The defense gets shelled. It looks like it was pretty much the nail in the coffin on the season. But then the Bengals turned around, won five straight games, and beat that same Pittsburgh team at Alley at I so default to calling it Heinz Field, but at Acrisure Stadium. But they go there and they win and they keep their playoff hopes alive. Unfortunately, due to some other circumstances, they don't make it in. But I don't know. I feel like they always rise to the occasion late in the season.
No, they absolutely do. And I mean, there's no way to go but up after you start the season, the way that they did. So that's part of it. But they do always get better. And I think it's just a testament to, I think Burrow, because I think Burrow obviously is somebody who hates to lose. He's a ultra competitor. So the moment they feel like their back's against the wall, I think that's when you get the best out of guys like Burrow, the guys like Chase, the guys like Higgins. So I agree with you. I think they get better. And I think that's also just a testament. I know we gave the defense a lot of slack early in the season, but I think they gelled and got better as a team as the season went on. But to answer your question, the team I'd want to face late in the season, and obviously from a fan perspective, if you're kind of looking for a win, Browns week 18, maybe they're jockeying for a draft position, that's something.
Mhm.
But, if I'm looking for a really good football game that might have some divisional implications on the line, seeing Baltimore late
Yep.
would be phenomenal. And just knowing the games that
Could
we
well
have.
be for the division.
Yeah, exactly. It could
Think
be
about
a
that.
back and forth title game.
Couple of
So
years ago, obviously, there was all the stuff with Damar Hamlin that kind of threw a wrench in it. Remember the coin flip? Remember all that stuff from the 2022 season? But the Bengals got rid of the coin flip, and they just obviously they beat the Ravens, who were down two quarterbacks. They were down Lamar Jackson and Tyler Huntley, and then they played them again the next week in the playoffs. I thought, by the way, the Ravens played a really great game that second game in the postseason. They were very unlucky to lose that game. The Bengals kind of got away with it a little bit in that game, in my opinion.
yeah.
But look, we got a legendary moment in that game, a moment that's going to forever live on in Bengals history with the Sam Hubbard fumble recovery. And, the Bengals did go on to the AFC Championship that year. So I think, again, it's going to be interesting to see. I think that very well could be like a game that goes into that Sunday night slot, just like the NFC North game was this year, where literally just an NFC North Championship game, like the Lions and Vikings. If they want to potentially set that up, because the last couple of years the Bengals and Ravens have played early in the season. They've
Right.
they've had both matchups done by November. I think that the league matchmakers may look into it and try and get the Ravens and Bengals to play later in the season with stakes being high and seeding and divisional titles on the line. This is an interesting exercise. Over under 4.5 primetime slots for the Bengals.
Ooh. I'm liking the over. I am liking the over. I just think you have way too much star power in Cincinnati, and they played a lot of primetime games last year, and it felt
Yep,
like every single one delivered.
they
For
did.
like how frustrating of a team the Bengals were last year, every single primetime game was a banger. I think back to that Rams game, that Cowboys game was fun. Obviously, the Ravens games were fantastic as well. So I'm gonna go over.
And then I mean, they were scheduled to have so many. They ended up getting a couple more late in the season. They got the
That's not
Pittsburgh
even mentioning
game.
the Broncos game.
Yeah, they got the Broncos game, which was the Saturday. So yeah, I think I agree with you on that over assessment. I think we'll for this intended purpose, we'll just do like as their schedule now. Like I know like they do those late season games where they don't really schedule much and they kind of just wait, which is fair because they want to schedule the best matchups late in the season. So I think um I think we can go through here and predict a couple of games that will be in prime time and kind of stake our claim. I could go first. I'll do four games and I'll do five and I'll throw them out. I think Baltimore, I think they get Baltimore at home this year on prime time. The last 3 years, the Bengals have been on the road in Baltimore in prime time. I think the NFL flips it back to Cincinnati this year. I think they get Baltimore in prime time at Paycor Stadium. I won't predict a Sunday, Monday, or Thursday night. I'll just say they get the Ravens at home in prime time. I think they'll have the Lions at home in prime time. And then I think on the road they will have the Vikings in prime time and the Bills in prime time. And I guess I said I'd do five. So I think they'll get the Steelers away in prime time. They'll throw another divisional game in there. So those will be my five. Those will be my five. I'm staking my flag, my claim right there. So what about you, Aiden?
To be honest with you, I agree with all of those, but we're going to be a little different. Well, I guess just for the
Please. We
exercise.
love diversity of opinion.
Yeah,
Please.
we're gonna be different. So, give me Baltimore. At home, I agree with you, just because it's been on the road. I will take that Bears matchup, that Caleb Williams matchup. I think that's one of the ones where they potentially, might play a little bit later in the year, and Chicago might be good, and they just throw it on there. So I'll take that one. I think the Lions that just has Sunday Night Football written all over it for me. That just gives me Sunday Night Football vibes. So I'll go there. The Bills for sure, and then I'll go the Broncos. I just think
I
after
like
the
that
game
one.
played last year, I think you would want a rematch
The
on
Broncos game could be another one that CBS wants potentially in that 425 slot for one of the weeks. Excuse me, definitely think. I mean, I think back last year, you remember a lot of people had that Eagles game circled as a primetime game for the Bengals, and it was initially in that 425 slot, and then it got moved because of the Commanders and Bears, which was the game that had that Hail Mary to Noah Brown to end that game. So obviously CBS ended up making a good decision in the end.
Yeah,
But
and I'll say this with the schedule as well. The Bengals better get it done at home this year. I mean,
have
they
to,
were
have to.
abysmal at home last year, and that's just again, as a fan, extremely frustrating. And you see that schedule. You have the Patriots, you have the Jets, you have the Jaguars.
They better get the Patriots back for what they did to them last
Yeah, yeah,
year.
and I get it. The Patriots are going to be improved. I think second year Drake May is going to be awesome. I think Mike Vrabel is going to make a difference with that team, but I still think they're a ways out from being competitive. The Jets, I mean, the Jets are the Jets, and then the Jaguars are also kind of in a transitional year. I think they'll be improved with the new coach Liam Cohen, but you just got to get it done at home.
Absolutely.
There's no excuse. There's no way you can go out there and put the same product on the field at
Nope.
home that you did last season. So that's going to be my biggest thing with the schedule is you got to win at home. You got to protect home field. They didn't do it last year, and that was just kind of a disgrace, I think, for a lot of fans. So
No, I think you're 100% right. It's just, it's bad. Like you can't, I mean, what was the record? Like, I think 3-5 at home, I think was their record, which you can't lose 5 games at Paycor Stadium. You just can't. And it's a shame. Last thing we'll do, this is a fun one. So the NFL just they increased the number of alternate uniform games to 4, I believe.
okay,
Give me 2 whiteout games at Paycor Stadium.
cool. Okay, let's go. Let's go with the Steelers. Just I think the energy in that game, I think that will be one. And then I think if that Lions game is in prime time, you consider it. Well, yeah, I think that could be cool. I think that could be cool. So give me Steelers Lions. What about you?
I think they'll do that Ravens game because the Ravens do always do the gimmicks for the Bengals. They do last year it was the purple uniforms. They've
Yeah,
done blackouts before. I think if the Bengals host the Ravens this year, why not do it to them? Do the whiteout. It's always a great atmosphere in Cincinnati. Even last year when it was that 1 p.m. game against the Eagles, it was still a great atmosphere. And I mean those uniforms are gorgeous. They're still going to look good, and they look even better under the lights. So I think that Baltimore game, and then I think they do on the road, maybe at Minnesota. I think that they would do, those whiteout uniforms because they've done it twice typically. They'll do one on the road and then one at home. Last year they only did it one time
yeah,
because they wore the orange uniforms a couple of times. But now that it's up to 4, I think they'll wear the orange uniforms twice and they'll wear the white helmets twice. And I think it'll be Baltimore at home in prime time, and then I think it will be Minnesota on the road. So
bring back
that'll
the
probably.
Leaping Tiger. Bring back the Leaping Tiger.
Yes, please.
Taylor.
That'll be the last thing we say. The Leaping Tiger is awesome. I wouldn't be surprised maybe if the Bengals do some throwback uniforms this offseason. There have been some rumors. There have been a couple of
Yeah,
rumors
bring it back.
flying around, but we'll see if the Bengals bring back. I mean, I think that they could do a pretty cool throwback to some of their 90s era uniforms. Not that that's an era the Bengals really want to remember, but they had some great uniforms.
Good look.
So they look good. That's about it. In the 90s for the Bengals. So that'll wrap things up for this edition of the Jungle Fever podcast. Next week, we're going to talk a lot about this again. We'll talk about the schedule. We'll see what the Bengals look at in terms of a week by week basis. We'll have every game. We'll preview what the schedule looks like, the toughest stretches, the easiest stretches. And then, of course, we'll have all your Bengals news updates. Hopefully, they don't break any news live on the air like we
Oh, that was
had
fun.
today. So that's always, hey, we're Big J professionals here. We got to be ready to roll with the punches when we can. So for Ayden, I've been Ethan saying so long. We will see you next Monday. Enjoy your week, and that'll do it for this edition of the Jungle Fever podcast.